The night Elena's ex-husband showed up drunk outside her apartment, pounding on the door and screaming her name, Adrian Wells was sitting in his penthouse 3 blocks away, staring at his phone. He'd built a billion-dollar empire by staying in control, by never making emotional decisions. But right now, every instinct told him to get in his car and drive to her. The problem? They'd only known each other 2 weeks. And the man currently threatening to break down her door was the same one who destroyed her financially, emotionally, and nearly broken her completely. This was how it started. Not with romance, but with fear. If you want to see how a billionaire and a woman with nothing found something worth risking everything for, stay until the end. Hit that like button and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. Adrian Wells didn't believe in fate, divine intervention, or love at first sight. At 32, he'd built his fortune on numbers, strategy, and the kind of cold calculation that made other men nervous in negotiations. His penthouse overlooking downtown Dallas was a testament to that philosophy. Clean lines, expensive furniture, and absolutely nothing that couldn't be explained by logic or purchased with money. Except maybe his son. Carter was 6 years old, dark-haired like his father, with eyes that still held questions Adrian didn't know how to answer. The boy's mother had died when he was 18 months old. Aneurysm. No warning. One moment she'd been laughing at breakfast, the next she was gone. Adrian had learned to manage his grief the same way he managed. The next morning, Adrian woke up thinking about her smile. Not the polite one she'd worn when they first met, but the real one that had appeared later in the evening when Carter had asked her if she liked dinosaurs. It had transformed her entire face, made her look younger, less guarded. He made coffee in his pristine kitchen and tried to focus on the quarterly reports waiting on his tablet. The numbers blurred. He kept seeing the way she'd tucked her hair behind her ear, a nervous gesture she probably didn't know she did. "Dad, can we invite Elena over?" Carter appeared in the doorway, already dressed but with his shirt on backwards. "Turn around. Let me fix that." Adrian set down his mug and helped his son straighten his clothes. "And we just met her yesterday. We can't just invite people over whenever we want." "Why not? You said she was nice." "I said she seemed nice. There's a difference." "What difference?" Adrian didn't have a good answer for that. "Go brush your teeth. We're leaving in 20 minutes. After dropping Carter at school, Adrian headed to his office downtown. The drive usually helped him clear his head, but today his mind kept wandering. He wondered if Elena had slept well, if her apartment was comfortable, if she'd found work yet. He was being ridiculous. He'd spoken to the woman for 2 hours. That didn't give him the right to worry about her employment situation. His assistant, Patricia, was waiting with his schedule when he arrived. "You have the Meridian meeting at 10, lunch with the Henderson Group at noon, and the acquisition team needs sign-off on the Robertson deal by end of day." "Fine. And Patricia, I need you to find something for me." She looked up, pen poised. "Sir?" "There's a woman who just moved into the building next to mine. Elena Carter. I want to know if she's looking for work." Patricia's expression didn't change, but Adrian caught the slight raise of her eyebrow. In the 5 years she'd worked for him, he'd never asked her to look into anyone's personal business. "What kind of work?" "I don't know. Just find out. Discreetly." "Of course, sir." The Meridian meeting ran long, as they always did. Adrian sat through 2 hours of presentations and counteroffers, his mind operating on autopilot. He'd done these negotiations so many times he could probably handle them in his sleep. When they finally broke for lunch, he checked his phone and found a text from an unknown number. "Hi, this is Elena. Carter left his dinosaur book at my apartment last night. Wanted to let you know in case he's looking for it." Adrian stared at the message. He hadn't given her his number, which meant she'd gotten it from the building directory, which meant she'd made an effort to contact him. The thought pleased him more than it should have. He typed back, "Thanks. He'll survive without it for a day. How are you settling in?" The response came a few minutes later, slowly. "Turns out moving with almost nothing means you have to buy almost everything. Currently sitting on a folding chair eating cereal from a mug because I don't have bowls yet." Without thinking, Adrian typed, "Have dinner with us tonight, 7 o'clock. My place." He hit send before he could second-guess himself, then spent the next 5 minutes staring at the screen waiting for her response. "That's really kind, but I don't want to intrude." "You're not intruding. Carter's been asking about you all morning. Plus, I actually have plates and bowls." The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, "Okay. 7. Should I bring anything? Just yourself. Adrian set down his phone and realized he was smiling. Patricia walked by his office and did a double take. Sir, are you all right? Fine. Cancel my afternoon meetings. All of them? All of them. And I need you to make a reservation at Lucia's for 2, 8 o'clock tonight. I thought you said you had dinner plans. I do, at 7. This is for after. Patricia looked at him like he'd grown a second head, but she simply nodded and left. Adrian knew what she was thinking. He was thinking the same thing. He was acting completely out of character, making impulsive decisions, rearranging his schedule for a woman he barely knew. He didn't care. Instead of going to his afternoon meetings, Adrian went home and actually looked at his apartment the way a stranger might see it. Cold, expensive, like a hotel room designed by someone with too much money and not enough imagination. He'd lived here for 4 years and it still didn't feel like a home. He called his housekeeper, Maria, and asked her to pick up groceries for dinner. Then he spent 20 minutes trying to decide what to cook before realizing he had no idea what Elena liked. He texted her again. Any food allergies I should know about? No allergies. I eat pretty much anything. Why? Just planning. You don't have to go to any trouble. It's not trouble. But it was trouble, he realized as he stood in his kitchen at 6:30, staring at the ingredients Maria had bought. He couldn't remember the last time he'd actually cooked anything more complicated than scrambled eggs. Most nights, he and Carter ate takeout or whatever Maria had prepared and left in the refrigerator. Dad, why are you cooking? Carter had appeared again, watching from the doorway with suspicious eyes. Because we have a guest coming. Elena? Yes. You like her? It wasn't a question. Adrian looked at his 6-year-old son and wondered when the kid had gotten so perceptive. I think she's nice, yes. No, you like her, like in movies. Carter, it's okay. I like her too. She's pretty and she knows about dinosaurs. Adrian turned back to the cutting board, trying to figure out how to explain this to a 6-year-old when he couldn't even explain it to himself. Sometimes adults become friends, buddy. That's all this is. Uh-huh. Carter sounded completely unconvinced. Can I help cook? They worked together in the kitchen, Carter standing on a stool to reach the counter, while Adrian tried to remember the techniques he'd learned from cooking shows he'd watched at 2 in the morning when Carter was a baby and sleep was impossible. By the time the doorbell rang at 7, the kitchen was a disaster, but something that looked vaguely like pasta primavera was simmering on the stove. I'll get it! Carter jumped off the stool and ran for the door. Wait! But the kid was already throwing it open. Elena stood in the hallway wearing jeans and a simple blue sweater, her hair down around her shoulders. She held a bottle of wine and looked nervous. Hi, Carter. Hi, Dad's cooking. It smells weird, but maybe it's good. Carter. Adrian appeared behind his son, wiping his hands on a towel. Sorry, come in. Elena stepped inside and he saw her taking in the apartment. The floor-to-ceiling windows, the designer furniture, the art on the walls that cost more than most people made in a year. Her expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. A wariness he hadn't seen before. Your home is beautiful. It's just a place. He took the wine from her, their fingers brushing briefly. Come on, I hope you're hungry. Dinner was awkward at first. Carter helped by talking non-stop about dinosaurs, his current obsession, while Adrian tried not to stare at Elena across the table. She was quieter tonight, more reserved. He wondered if the apartment had intimidated her, if seeing how he lived had made her uncomfortable. So, what did you do before you moved here? Adrian asked during a rare moment when Carter paused to take a breath. Elena set down her fork carefully. I was a graphic designer. Freelance mostly, working from home. You don't do that anymore? I did until about 8 months ago. She didn't elaborate, and Adrian didn't push, but he saw the tightness around her eyes, the way her shoulders tensed. Did you like it? I loved it. For the first time that evening, her expression softened. I love taking someone's vague idea and making it real. Logos, websites, marketing materials, every project was different. Why'd you stop? She looked down at her plate. Life got complicated. Carter, oblivious to the tension, piped up. Can you make me a logo with a T-Rex? Elena laughed, and just like that, the awkwardness broke. Sure, what would the logo be for? My room, so everyone knows it's mine. Everyone being who? Adrian asked. I don't know. Future people? After dinner, Carter dragged Elena to his room to show her his dinosaur collection while Adrian cleaned up the kitchen. When he went to check on them 20 minutes later, he found Elena sitting cross-legged on the floor, sketching something on a piece of paper while Carter narrated an elaborate story about a T-Rex who solved mysteries. Adrian leaned against the doorframe, watching them. Carter was animated in a way he rarely was with adults. And Elena wasn't just humoring him. She was genuinely engaged, asking questions, laughing at the right moments. It did something to Adrian's chest, made it tight in a way that had nothing to do with attraction and everything to do with the future he'd stopped imagining for himself. "Okay, buddy, time for bed," he said finally, "but we're not done with the logo. I can finish it at home and bring it by tomorrow," Elena offered. "If that's okay with your dad." Carter looked at Adrian with pleading eyes. "Please?" "Fine. But bed. Now, say goodnight to Elena." After Carter was tucked in, Adrian walked Elena to the door. She paused in the entryway, turning to face him. "Thank you for dinner, and for this. It was nice." "You don't have to thank me. I enjoyed it." He hesitated, then said, "I have a reservation at Lucia's at 8. It's a restaurant downtown. Would you want to go?" Her eyes widened. "Right now?" "Unless you have other plans." "I don't, but Adrian, I can't afford. I'm inviting you. My treat." She bit her lip, and he could see her working through the implications. "I don't want you to think I'm using you for your money." "I don't think that. You barely know me." "Then let's change that. One drink. If you hate it, we'll leave." She studied his face for a long moment. Whatever she saw there must have satisfied her because she nodded. "Okay. One drink." They took his car, a sleek Mercedes that probably cost more than Elena had made in several years. She was quiet during the drive, looking out the window at the city lights. Adrian wanted to ask what she was thinking, but didn't know how without sounding desperate. Lucia's was the kind of place where reservations were booked months in advance, and the waitstaff recognized you by sight. The hostess greeted Adrian by name and led them to a corner table with a view of the skyline. "You come here a lot," Elena said after they sat down. "Business dinners mostly. The food's good and it's quiet enough to actually talk. And expensive enough that people know you're serious." He looked at her sharply. "You don't approve." "I didn't say that. Just making an observation." She picked up the menu, her eyes widening slightly at the prices. "Adrian, I really can't." "Stop, please." He reached across the table, covering her hand with his. "I asked you here because I wanted to spend time with you. Not because I expect anything, not because I'm trying to impress you with money. Just because I like talking to you. Can we start from there?" Her fingers tensed under his, then slowly relaxed. "Okay." They ordered wine and appetizers, and gradually the conversation found its rhythm. Elena told him about growing up in a small town in Oklahoma, how she'd always drawn and painted, how she'd put herself through community college before building her freelance business. Adrian talked about Carter, about the fear of raising a son alone, about the pressure of running a company where hundreds of people depended on his decisions. "Do you like it?" Elena asked. "The business, I mean. Or is it just what you do?" No one had ever asked him that. "I'm good at it. That's not the same as liking it, I guess. But it provides for Carter, gives him stability. That matters more." "But what about what makes you happy?" "Carter makes me happy." "Besides Carter?" Adrian considered the question. "I don't know. I stopped thinking about my own happiness somewhere around the time I became a father. It seemed selfish." "That's sad." "Is it? I have everything most people want. Money, success, a healthy kid. But are you happy?" She held his gaze, unflinching. "Are you?" he countered. Elena smiled sadly. "No, but I'm working on it. That's why I moved here. Fresh start, new city, chance to figure out who I am when I'm not trying to be what someone else needs." "Your ex-husband." She stiffened. "How did you know I was married?" "You have a tan line on your ring finger. It's fading, but it's there." She looked down at her hand, flexing her fingers. "Observant. It's part of my job. Reading people, noticing details." "And what do you read from me?" "That you're scared. That you're trying really hard to seem okay when you're not. That something hurt you badly enough that you walked away from your entire life and started over with almost nothing." He paused. "And that you're one of the strongest people I've ever met. Tears gathered in her eyes, but she blinked them back. You don't know me well enough to say that. Maybe not, but I'd like to. They talked until the restaurant started closing, the staff politely clearing tables around them. Adrian couldn't remember the last time he'd lost track of time like this, so absorbed in conversation that the outside world disappeared. Elena told him about her marriage, though she kept the details vague. Enough for him to understand that her ex had been controlling, financially abusive, that she'd spent years making herself smaller to keep the peace. Why did you finally leave? Adrian asked as they walked to his car. Because one morning I woke up and didn't recognize myself in the mirror. I'd become this quiet, careful person who was afraid to have opinions or make noise or take up space, and I realized that if I stayed, I'd disappear completely. She wrapped her arms around herself against the cool night air. So I packed a bag, took what money I'd managed to save without him noticing, and left. Filed for divorce from a motel room in Wichita Falls. Does he know where you are? No, I've been careful, changed my phone number, didn't tell anyone where I was going. She looked up at him. You think I'm paranoid? I think you're protecting yourself. There's a difference. He drove her home, parking in the visitor spot outside her building. Elena reached for the door handle but didn't open it. Adrian, I need to be honest with you about something. Okay, I'm not looking for a relationship. I'm not ready for that. I'm still figuring out how to be on my own, how to make my own decisions without second-guessing everything. I like you, I really do, but I can't be what you might want me to be right now. He thought about being careful, diplomatic. Instead, he told the truth. I'm not asking you to be anything except yourself. I like spending time with you. Carter likes you. If that's all this ever is, that's fine. No pressure, no expectations. Just let's keep having dinner sometimes. Keep talking. See what happens. She searched his face in the dim light from the street lamps. You're not going to push? No. You're not going to get frustrated when I need space? No. You're almost too good to be true. You know that makes you suspicious, right? He laughed. I have plenty of flaws. Ask anyone who works for me. I'm controlling, I have trouble delegating, I work too much, and I haven't had a meaningful relationship in 6 years. I'm completely out of practice at this. At what? At whatever this is. Elena smiled. Okay, dinner sometimes, talking, no pressure. No pressure. She got out of the car, then leaned back in. Thank you for tonight, for the food and the conversation, and for not making me feel like charity. You're not charity, Elena. After she went inside, Adrian sat in his car for a long time, watching the lights in her apartment flicker on. He felt something he hadn't felt in years, hope mixed with fear, the dangerous combination that made people do stupid things. He drove home knowing he was already in deeper than was wise. The next week fell into an unexpected pattern. Elena came over for dinner 3 times, always bringing something small, flowers from the grocery store, a bottle of cheap wine, a sketch she'd made for Carter. She and the boy became genuine friends, spending hours drawing together while Adrian worked in his study. On Friday night, she helped Carter with a school project about family trees, and Adrian found himself explaining his parents' divorce, his mother's death, the gaps in his own history he usually avoided. Everyone's tree has broken branches, Elena said quietly. That's what makes them interesting. By the second week, Adrian realized he was structuring his entire schedule around seeing her. He came home earlier, turned down evening meetings, actually sat down for dinner instead of eating at his desk. Carter noticed the change and approved, asking every morning if Elena was coming over. On Wednesday, Adrian's friend Marcus stopped by unannounced and found Elena in the kitchen teaching Carter how to make cookies. Well, hello, Marcus said, giving Adrian a significant look. I didn't know you had company. Adrian made introductions. Marcus was charming, as always, asking Elena about herself with genuine interest. But after she left, taking a smiling Carter to wash his hands, Marcus turned to Adrian with raised eyebrows. Dude, really? What? You know what? You've been a monk for 6 years and now you're playing house with the girl next door? It's not like that. Then what's it like? Adrian struggled to explain something he didn't fully understand himself. She's different. She doesn't care about my money. She actually seems uncomfortable with it. And she's good with Carter. And she's beautiful. That too. Marcus studied him carefully. You're falling for her. I barely know her. That's not a no. It wasn't. Adrian knew he was developing feelings that went beyond simple attraction. Elena made him laugh, made him think, challenged his assumptions about what mattered. She'd mentioned wanting to find freelance work again, and he'd spent an entire afternoon thinking about businesses he could connect her with. Not to save her or control her, but because he wanted to see her eyes light up the way they did when she talked about design. Be careful, Marcus said. You don't know her whole story yet. I know enough. Do you? Do you know why she really left, what she's running from? She's not running from anything. She left a bad marriage. Or so she says. Adrian felt anger flare. Get out! Marcus held up his hands. I'm just saying, protect yourself. Protect Carter. You've built a good life here. Don't blow it up for someone you met 2 weeks ago. After Marcus left, Adrian stood in his living room feeling unsettled. He trusted his friend's judgment in business, but this wasn't business. This was personal, messy, complicated. And maybe Marcus was right to be concerned. Adrian was making himself vulnerable in ways he'd sworn he never would again. But when Elena came back with Carter, both of them covered in flour and laughing about the mess they'd made, all his doubts evaporated. This felt right in a way nothing had felt right in years. That night after Carter was asleep and Elena was about to leave, she paused at the door again. This was becoming their ritual, lingering in the entryway, neither quite ready to say goodnight. Adrian, can I ask you something? Anything. Why me? You could have anyone. Successful women, beautiful women, women who fit into your world. So why waste your time with someone like me? He stepped closer, close enough to see the flecks of gold in her brown eyes. Because those women bore me. They say what they think I want to hear. They laugh at jokes that aren't funny. They look at me and see dollar signs. You look at me and see, I don't even know what you see. But it's real. And I haven't had real in a very long time. I see a man who's lonely, she said softly. A man who's so busy taking care of everyone else that he forgot to take care of himself. I see someone who's scared of getting hurt again, just like me. Is that all you see? No. She reached up, her fingers barely touching his jaw. I also see someone kind, someone patient, someone who loves his son so much it hurts to watch sometimes. And I see someone who makes me feel safe, which terrifies me. Why does safety terrify you? Because the last time I felt safe with someone, I almost lost myself completely. Adrian covered her hand with his, keeping it pressed against his face. I'm not him. I don't want to change you or control you or make you smaller. I want to see who you become when you finally have space to be yourself. She was crying now, silent tears tracking down her cheeks. What if that person disappoints you? Impossible. You don't know that. I know that every version of you I've seen so far has been amazing. Scared, strong, funny, smart, kind. I'll take whatever else comes with the package. Elena pulled her hand back, wiping at her eyes. I should go. Stay. Adrian, not like that. Just stay. Have coffee. Talk more. I'm not ready for you to leave yet. She hesitated, then nodded. They sat in his living room until 2 a.m, talking about everything and nothing. She told him about her mother who died when she was 16, about the foster homes after, about putting herself through school while working 3 jobs. He told her about building his first company at 24, about the gambling problem he'd had in his 20s, about the night Carter's mother died and how he'd held his baby son and promised to never let anyone hurt him. You're a good father, Elena said. I'm trying to be. Most days I feel like I'm failing. That's how you know you're doing it right. The ones who think they have it all figured out are the ones screwing it up. When she finally left, the sky was starting to lighten with dawn. Adrian went to bed but couldn't sleep, his mind replaying every moment, every word. He was falling, fast and hard and with no safety net. The smart thing would be to pull back, protect himself, remember all the reasons this was a bad idea. Instead, when he got up 3 hours later, he texted her. Dinner tonight? My place? Her response came immediately. I'll bring dessert. That afternoon, Patricia knocked on his office door looking troubled. Sir, I found the information you asked for. About Elena Carter. Adrian had forgotten he'd asked her to look into Elena's background. Now he wasn't sure he wanted to know. And? She filed for divorce 8 months ago in Oklahoma. Before that, there's very little. She didn't have credit cards in her own name, no property ownership, nothing. It's like she didn't exist outside her marriage. That's not uncommon in controlling relationships. No, sir. But there's more. Her ex-husband, James Mitchell, he's been arrested twice for assault. Once against Elena, she dropped the charges, and once against a colleague. He's currently on probation. Adrian's blood ran cold. Does he know where she is? I don't think so. She's been very careful, but sir, if he finds out, he won't. Make sure of it. I want someone watching her building, discreetly, and I want to know immediately if anyone starts asking questions about her. Patricia nodded. Sir, may I speak freely? When has that ever stopped you? She's running from someone dangerous. Getting involved with her puts you and Carter at risk. I'm aware. And you're proceeding anyway. Yes, Patricia sighed. Then I'll make the arrangements, but please be careful. That evening, Adrian watched Elena carefully, looking for signs of fear or stress. She seemed relaxed, happy even, teaching Carter how to make paper airplanes and launching them across the living room. But now that he knew about her ex, he saw things differently. The way she flinched slightly at loud noises, how she always positioned herself near the door, the frequent checks of her phone, like she was waiting for bad news. After dinner, while Carter was distracted with a movie, Adrian pulled Elena aside. Tell me about your ex-husband. Her face went pale. What? James Mitchell. Tell me about him. How do you know his name? Adrian realized his mistake. I had someone look into your background. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that without asking. She stepped back from him, hurt and anger warring in her expression. You investigated me. I wanted to help, to make sure you were safe. No, you wanted to control the situation, to know everything before deciding if I was worth the risk. Her voice was shaking. You're just like him. Elena, that's not... You know what James used to say? That he was protecting me. That he needed to know where I was and who I talked to and what I spent money on because he was keeping me safe. And I believed him for years before I realized he just wanted power over me. I'm not trying to control you. I'm trying to protect you. From what? From my own past? From my own choices? I don't need you to save me, Adrian. I saved myself. I know that. But he's dangerous. He's been arrested for assault. What if he finds you? Then I'll deal with it. The same way I've been dealing with it for 8 months. She grabbed her purse. I need to go. Elena, please. No. I thought you were different, but you're just another man who thinks he knows what's best for me. Who thinks having money gives him the right to make decisions about my life. She left, slamming the door behind her. Adrian stood frozen, Carter calling from the other room asking what happened. He'd screwed up, badly. His intentions might have been good, but he'd violated her trust, treated her like a problem to be solved instead of a person making her own choices. He didn't sleep that night. At 6 a.m, he was standing outside her apartment with coffee and the dinosaur logo she'd made for Carter, which the boy had insisted he bring as a peace offering. Elena answered the door in pajamas, her eyes red like she'd been crying. I'm sorry, Adrian said before she could speak. You're right. I had no right to investigate you. I was scared and I let that fear turn into control. That's not who I want to be. Not with you. She took the drawing but didn't invite him in. I can't do this if you're going to treat me like I'm fragile, or stupid, or incapable of handling my own life. I know. I left everything to get away from someone who tried to make those decisions for me. I won't do that again, not even for someone I care about. I understand. Do you? Because this is who I am. I make my own choices, even bad ones. I take care of myself. I don't need rescuing. Then let me be your friend, not your savior, not your protector. Just someone who cares about you and wants to spend time with you. She studied him for a long moment. Can you do that? Can you watch me struggle and not try to fix everything? I can try. And when I mess up, because I will, you can call me on it. I will. So we're okay? Elena sighed. We're okay. But Adrian, no more digging into my past. If I want to tell you something, I will. On my own time. Deal. She finally smiled, just a little. Carter really wanted you to bring the drawing? He said you worked hard on it, and you'd be sad if we didn't have it. Smart kid. He gets it from me. Debatable. But she was laughing now, the tension breaking. Come in. I'll make terrible coffee, and we can talk about boundaries like adults. They spent the next hour establishing rules. Elena needed space to make her own choices, even if Adrian disagreed with them. Adrian needed her to be honest about her fears instead of hiding them. They both needed to communicate better, to trust each other enough to be vulnerable. "I'm not good at this," Adrian admitted, "at being vulnerable, at not being in control. It makes me feel weak. Join the club." "You know what I did yesterday after I left? I called a friend from back home and told her where I was living. First person I've told in 8 months. Because I realized that hiding from James means hiding from everything, and I'm tired of letting him control my life even from a distance." That was brave. It was terrifying, but necessary. She poured more coffee. "I'm going to start looking for freelance work again, actually putting myself out there instead of just thinking about it." "That's great. And I'm going to need you to not offer to hire me or connect me with your business friends. I need to do this myself." It physically hurt not to immediately offer his help, but Adrian nodded. "Understood. See? You can do it." She squeezed his hand. "We're going to be okay. We just have to remember that we're both broken in different ways and give each other room to heal." "Broken but healing," Adrian said. Exactly. They were okay. But Adrian couldn't shake the feeling that the peace was temporary, that somewhere out there, trouble was waiting. He just didn't know how close it already was. 3 weeks later, Elena landed her first freelance client since the move, a small nonprofit that needed a new website design. The pay wasn't much, but she came to Adrian's apartment that night glowing with pride, clutching the signed contract like it was made of gold. "They found me through my portfolio," she said, practically bouncing. "No connections, no handouts, just my work." Carter high-fived her, not entirely understanding but caught up in her excitement. Adrian opened a bottle of champagne he'd been saving for no particular occasion, deciding this qualified. "To new beginnings," he said, raising his glass. "To doing it myself," Elena countered, and there was an edge to her voice that reminded him she was still proving something, still fighting to believe in her own capability. They fell into something that resembled a routine, but felt more organic than that. Elena came over most evenings, sometimes staying for dinner, sometimes just stopping by to return something Carter had left at her place or to drop off sketches she'd made. Adrian found himself looking forward to the sound of her knock, the way his apartment felt less empty when she was in it. But he was careful now. When she mentioned struggling to afford design software, he bit his tongue instead of offering to pay for it. When her car broke down and she had to take the bus for a week, he didn't call his mechanic. It killed him to watch her navigate problems he could solve with a phone call and a credit card. But he'd learned his lesson. Elena needed to solve her own problems. "You're doing better," she told him one night as they cleaned up after dinner. Carter was in bed, and they'd fallen into this pattern of talking in the kitchen while doing dishes, something domestic and comfortable that terrified Adrian with how much he wanted it to be permanent. Better at what? At not trying to fix everything. "I can see it costs you, though. You get this look on your face like you're physically restraining yourself." "Is it that obvious?" "To me it is." She handed him a plate to dry. "But I appreciate it, really. You have no idea how much it means to have someone who respects my choices, even when they don't agree with them." "He never did he? Your ex?" Elena was quiet for a moment, her hands still in the soapy water. "James had an opinion about everything. What I wore, what I ate, who I talked to, how I spent every single minute of my day. He'd call it caring, but it was control. And the worst part is, I let it happen. I convinced myself that's what love looked like." "That's not on you. He manipulated you. I know. Intellectually, I know that. But there's this voice in my head that says I should have seen it sooner, should have left earlier, should have been smarter." She pulled her hands from the water, drying them on a towel. "That's why I need to do things myself now. Every time I solve a problem on my own, that voice gets a little quieter." Adrian set down the plate and turned to face her. "For what it's worth, I think you're incredibly strong, and smart, and brave." "You barely know me." "I know enough." She looked up at him, and something shifted in the air between them. They'd been dancing around this for weeks. The attraction that hummed beneath every conversation, every accidental touch. Adrian had been so focused on respecting her boundaries that he'd almost convinced himself the pull was one-sided. But the way Elena was looking at him now suggested otherwise. "Adrian," his phone rang, shattering the moment. He almost ignored it, but the ringtone told him it was his head of security, a call he'd specifically instructed to be put through no matter the time. I need to take this. He stepped into the living room. What is it? Sir, we have a situation. There's a man asking questions about Elena Carter at the building next door. The night guard says he's been there twice this week, claiming to be her brother. Adrian's blood went cold. What does he look like? The description matched the photo Patricia had pulled of James Mitchell. He's there now? Left about 20 minutes ago. But sir, he knows which building she's in. It's only a matter of time before he finds the specific apartment. Double the security on her building. I want someone watching her door 24/7, and I want to know the second he comes back. Already done, sir. Adrian hung up and stood there trying to figure out how to tell Elena without making it seem like he was taking over again. She appeared in the doorway, reading his expression. What's wrong? Come sit down. Adrian, you're scaring me. He told her as gently as he could, watching her face drain of color. She sank onto the couch, her hands shaking. He found me. I don't know how, but he found me. You don't know it's him for sure. Who else would be looking for me? Who else would lie and say he's my brother? Her voice was rising, panic creeping in. I was so careful. I changed my number. I didn't tell anyone. I paid cash for everything the first month so there wouldn't be a paper trail. How did he find me? Adrian sat beside her, careful not to touch her without permission. It doesn't matter how. What matters is you're safe. I have security on your building now. He can't get to you. You don't understand. James doesn't give up. He'll wait. He'll watch. He'll find a pattern. That's what he does. He's patient and methodical, and he always wins. Not this time. She looked at him with eyes full of fear and something else, resignation, like she'd always known this moment would come. You should stay away from me. Both you and Carter. If James finds out about you, if he thinks there's something between us, he'll make you a target too. I'm not scared of him. You should be. You don't know what he's capable of. Then tell me. Elena stood up, pacing. The assault charge Patricia found? That was the time I ended up in the hospital. He broke my arm and 2 ribs because I'd gone to coffee with a friend without telling him first. I told the police I fell down the stairs. The second arrest was because he beat up a guy at his office who'd asked me how my weekend was. Just casual small talk, and James put him in the hospital. Adrian felt rage building in his chest, hot and dangerous. Elena, I dropped the charges because he convinced me it was my fault. That I'd led his coworker on, that I'd made James feel disrespected. And I believed him. I actually believed I deserved it. She was crying now, angry tears streaming down her face. So yes, you should be scared of him, because he's violent and obsessive, and he won't stop until he gets what he wants. What does he want? Me. Under his control again. And if he can't have that, he'll make sure no one else can have me either. Adrian stood and went to her, slowly reaching for her hands. She let him take them. Listen to me. You are not alone anymore. You have me, and I have resources he doesn't. Money, lawyers, security. We can get a restraining order. Restraining orders are just paper. They don't stop men like James. Then we'll figure out something else. But you're not doing this alone, and you're not running again. Maybe I should. Maybe that's the only way to keep everyone safe. Running didn't work before. What makes you think it'll work now? She pulled her hands away. At least if I run, you and Carter stay safe. I can't have him hurt because of me. I can't. He won't be, I promise you. You can't promise that. You can't control what James does any more than I can. She was right, and they both knew it. Adrian wanted to promise he'd keep her safe, that everything would be fine. But those were empty words. James Mitchell was a threat, and there was no guarantee that money or security would be enough to stop him. Stay here tonight, Adrian said finally. The guest room. You'll be safer. Adrian, please. If not for yourself, then for my peace of mind. I can't sleep knowing he's out there looking for you. She hesitated, then nodded. Just tonight. Tomorrow I'll figure out what to do. Adrian gave her clothes to sleep in and showed her to the guest room. After she closed the door, he sat in his living room with his phone, calling in every favor he had. His lawyer started the restraining order paperwork. His head of security coordinated with local police. His private investigator began digging into James Mitchell's current location and activities. At 3 in the morning, Patricia called him back with information. Sir, James Mitchell quit his job in Oklahoma 2 weeks ago. He's been living in his car, and according to his credit card statements, he's been in Dallas for at least 5 days. 5 days? He's been here 5 days and we're just finding out now? He's been careful, paying cash for most things. But he slipped up yesterday, used his card at a gas station 2 blocks from Elena's apartment. What else? There's more. He's been posting on social media, nothing explicit, but lots of vague references to finding what's his and fixing mistakes. The tone is concerning. Adrian closed his eyes. Send me everything you have. He spent the rest of the night reading through James Mitchell's digital footprint. The man was unraveling, that much was clear. His posts became increasingly erratic, swinging between professions of love for his wife and angry rants about betrayal and disrespect. There were veiled threats, references to teaching lessons, promises that she'll understand soon enough. When Elena emerged from the guest room at 6, Adrian was still on the couch, surrounded by printouts and notes. Did you sleep at all? She asked. Did you? No. She sat beside him, looking at the papers spread across his coffee table. What is all this? He showed her, watched her face as she read through her ex-husband's descent into obsession. She was eerily calm, like she'd expected this. He's going to come here, she said finally, to this building, because even if he doesn't know exactly which apartment is mine, he'll stake it out until he sees me. Then you stay here, move in temporarily. He doesn't know about me, doesn't know we're connected. And when he sees me coming and going from your apartment, when he sees me with Carter, we'll be careful. There is no careful with James. He sees everything, notices everything. It's like he has a sixth sense for anything that threatens his control. So what do you want to do? I'll support whatever decision you make, but Elena, running isn't the answer. She was quiet for a long time, staring at the papers in her hands. I want to stop being afraid. I want to stop letting him dictate my life, but I don't know how to do that. We start with the restraining order. Then we make sure he knows you're serious, that you're not coming back, that he needs to move on. And if he doesn't, then we deal with it, together. Carter woke up then, padding into the living room in his pajamas. He stopped when he saw Elena. You had a sleepover. Just in the guest room, buddy, Adrian said. Elena's car is being fixed, so she stayed here. It was a lie, but a necessary one. Carter didn't need to know about James, about danger, about any of this. Can we have pancakes? Carter asked. Elena makes them better than you, Dad. Despite everything, Elena laughed. I'll make pancakes, but your dad has to help. They moved into the kitchen, and for a brief moment it almost felt normal. Carter chattered about school, while Elena measured ingredients and Adrian tried not to hover. But the normalcy was fragile, a bubble that could pop at any moment. After breakfast, after Carter left for school, Elena turned to Adrian with determination in her eyes. I need to go to my apartment, get some things. I'll come with you. No, if James is watching, I can't be seen with you. It'll make things worse. Elena, please, I need to do this. I'll be quick, in and out. And you have security watching the building, right? He wanted to argue, but he'd promised to respect her choices. Fine, but you take my phone. It has the security team on speed dial, and you text me every 10 minutes, so I know you're okay. Deal. She left, and Adrian spent the next hour pacing his apartment like a caged animal. Every 10 minutes, his phone buzzed with a text. Fine. Getting clothes, then grabbing my laptop, then almost done. The fourth text didn't come. At minute 12, Adrian called her. No answer. At minute 15, he called his security team. Is she still in the apartment? Yes, sir. We have eyes on the entrance. No one's gone in or out except residents. At minute 20, Adrian couldn't take it anymore. He grabbed his keys and headed for the door just as it burst open. Elena stood there, gasping for breath, her face white as paper. He was there, inside my apartment. Adrian pulled her inside, checking the hallway before closing and locking the door. Are you hurt? No, I don't think he knew I was there. I heard him moving around, talking to himself. I hid in the bathroom until he left. What was he saying? Crazy things. About how I'd ruined his life. How I owed him a chance to explain. How we belonged together. She was shaking, and Adrian guided her to the couch. He was going through my things, Adrian. My clothes, my sketches. He took some of them. He took my wedding ring. I'd left it in a drawer. How did he get in? I don't know. The lock wasn't broken. He must have picked it, or I don't know. She buried her face in her hands. This is a nightmare. I can't stay there now. I can't go back knowing he was inside, touching my things. You're not going back. You're staying here. I can't just move in with you. We're not, I don't care what we are or aren't. You need a safe place and I'm offering one. We'll figure out the rest later. Elena looked up at him with tears streaming down her face. Why are you doing this? Why do you care so much about someone you barely know? Because, Adrian stopped, the words catching in his throat. Because I'm falling in love with you. Because the thought of him hurting you makes me want to commit violence. Because you and Carter are the best parts of my day, and I can't imagine my life without you in it anymore. He didn't say any of that. Instead, he said, because it's the right thing to do. It wasn't entirely a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth either. Elena seemed to know that, but she let it slide. Okay, temporarily, until this is resolved. Temporarily, Adrian agreed, though he was already thinking about how to make it permanent. They spent the rest of the day getting Elena's essential belongings from her apartment. Adrian insisted on going with her this time, and he brought 2 security guards. The apartment felt violated. Things moved and disturbed. Elena packed quickly, her hand shaking as she grabbed clothes and toiletries and her laptop. My portfolio, she said suddenly. All my physical portfolio pieces. He took them. We'll make new ones. You don't understand. Those were years of work, client samples, original sketches, everything I'd need to show potential employers. Her voice broke. He's trying to destroy my career before it even restarts. Adrian wanted to hunt James Mitchell down and make him pay for every moment of pain he'd caused her. Instead, he helped her pack what remained, making mental notes about what she'd need to replace. They were loading this last box into his car when Adrian's phone rang, his head of security. Sir, we have him, James Mitchell. He's in the lobby of your building right now asking the front desk about Elena Carter. Adrian's blood ran ice cold. He looked at Elena, who'd gone pale again. Stall him. I'm on my way. Adrian, no! Elena grabbed his arm. Don't confront him, please. It'll only make things worse. He's in my building, asking about you. I'm not letting that slide. Then call the police. Let them handle it. She was right, but Adrian's rage was too hot for rational thought. This man had terrorized the woman he cared about, had broken her arm, had stolen years of her life, and now he had the audacity to show up at Adrian's home, threatening the fragile peace they'd built. Stay in the car. Lock the doors. Adrian, but he was already walking toward the entrance, his phone to his ear calling the police. In the lobby, he found James Mitchell arguing with the doorman, a man smaller than Adrian expected, maybe 5'8", thin but wiry. He looked disheveled, like he'd been sleeping in his car, but his eyes were sharp and cold. I know she's here, James was saying. I saw her come in earlier. Elena Carter. Which apartment? Sir, I've told you, I can't give out that information, the doorman said, clearly uncomfortable. James slammed his hand on the desk. That's my wife. I have a right to see her. Ex-wife, Adrian said, stepping forward. And no, you don't. James spun around, sizing Adrian up. Who the hell are you? Building security. And you're trespassing. The police are on their way. Something dangerous flickered in James's eyes. You're the one, the guy she's been whoring herself out to. Adrian forced himself to stay calm. You need to leave. Now. Where is she? Elena, James shouted toward the elevators. I know you can hear me. Come down here and talk to me like an adult instead of hiding behind your new sugar daddy. Last warning, leave or I'll have you forcibly removed. James laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. You think your money scares me? You think you can just swoop in and steal my wife? She left you. That's not stealing. That's escaping. The punch came fast, catching Adrian in the jaw. He stumbled back, more surprised than hurt. The doorman was shouting, and Adrian could hear sirens approaching. James came at him again, but Adrian was ready this time. He caught the smaller man's arm, twisting it behind his back and forcing him face first onto the lobby floor. Stay down, Adrian growled. Get off me. She's mine. She'll always be mine. The police arrived minutes later, pulling James up and cuffing him. He was still screaming as they dragged him out, promises and threats spilling out in a toxic stream. You can't keep her from me. I'll find her. She belongs to me. Tell her I love her. Tell her I'll forgive her if she just comes home. Adrian stood there breathing hard, his jaw throbbing where James had hit him. The doorman was apologizing profusely, but Adrian waved him off. He just wanted to get back to Elena, to make sure she was okay. She was still in the car, tears streaming down her face. When Adrian opened the door, she threw herself into his arms. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. This is all my fault. Stop. None of this is your fault. He hit you. Barely. I've had worse from sparring at the gym. This is exactly what I was afraid of. Him hurting you because of me. Adrian pulled back to look at her. I'm fine. And he's the one in handcuffs, not me. The restraining order just got a lot easier to obtain. He meant what he said. About finding me. About not giving up. Let him try. He comes near you again, he goes to jail. Simple as that. But they both knew it wasn't that simple. Men like James didn't follow rules, didn't respect court orders. The restraining order would be a piece of paper, nothing more. That night, after Carter was asleep and Elena was settled in the guest room, Adrian sat in his study with a glass of whiskey, replaying the encounter. He'd been in control, professional, everything he should have been. But part of him had wanted to keep hitting, to make James Mitchell pay with more than just arrest and a court date. The darkness of that impulse scared him. Elena appeared in the doorway, wrapped in one of his shirts because she'd forgotten to pack pajamas. Can't sleep? She asked. Just thinking. She came in and sat across from him. About what? About how badly I wanted to hurt him, really hurt him. That's not who I am. But when he called you those things, when he put his hands on you in the past, Adrian shook his head. I wanted to make him suffer. But you didn't. You stayed in control. Barely. That's what matters. James would have kept hitting. He wouldn't have stopped until someone pulled him off. She hugged herself. I'm scared, Adrian. Not just of him finding me again, but of what I've gotten you into. You and Carter. This isn't your fight. You're wrong. The moment you became important to me, it became my fight. Important to you, she repeated softly. Is that what I am? Adrian set down his glass and met her eyes. You're more than important. He struggled to find words that wouldn't send her running. You've changed things for me. Made me want things I thought I'd stopped wanting years ago. Like what? Like this. Coming home to someone. Having dinner as a family. Talking in the middle of the night because sleep is less interesting than conversation. He paused. Like the possibility of not being alone anymore. Elena was quiet for a long moment. I'm broken, Adrian. You know that, right? This thing with James, it's not going to be resolved quickly or easily. There's going to be court dates and drama and probably more confrontations. Is that really what you want in your life? I want you in my life. Everything else we'll figure out. You say that now. I mean it. Today, tomorrow, next month, when this is still messy and complicated. I'm not going anywhere, Elena, unless you want me to. She stood up and crossed to him, sitting on the edge of his desk. I don't want you to go anywhere. That's the problem. I'm starting to need you, and that terrifies me. The last time I needed someone, I lost myself completely. I'm not him. I know, but I'm still scared. Adrian reached up, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Can I tell you what I'm scared of? What? That one day you'll wake up and realize you don't need me anymore. That you'll move on, and I'll go back to being alone with my money, and my empty apartment, and my half-lived life. That's not going to happen. How do you know? She smiled sadly. Because I'm pretty sure I'm falling for you, and that's the most terrifying thing of all. The admission hung in the air between them. Adrian stood slowly, closing the distance until they were inches apart. Elena, don't. If you're going to kiss me, just do it. Don't give me time to overthink and panic and ruin this. So he kissed her. Soft at first, giving her time to pull back if she wanted. But she didn't pull back. She leaned in, her hands coming up to frame his face, and the kiss deepened into something that felt like relief and terror and coming home all at once. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Elena rested her forehead against his. This is a terrible idea, she whispered. Probably. I'm a mess. My ex is stalking me. I have no money, no career, no stability. I don't care. You should. Well, I don't. He kissed her again, softer this time. Stay with me. Not just until this is over. Actually stay. Adrian, we barely know each other. Then we'll get to know each other. We'll take it slow, but stay. She pulled back, searching his face. Whatever she found there must have satisfied her because she nodded. Okay, I'll stay. For now. We'll see what happens. It wasn't a declaration of love or a promise of forever, but it was enough. For now, it was enough. They sat together in his study until dawn, talking about everything and nothing, holding on to each other like anchors in a storm. Neither of them mentioned James or court or what came next. For a few hours, they pretended the world outside didn't exist. But morning came anyway, bringing reality with it. And reality included a text from Adrian's lawyer confirming the emergency restraining order had been approved, and a message from the police saying James had made bail and was gone. Elena saw the messages over Adrian's shoulder. Her face went pale, but she didn't cry, didn't panic. He's out there, she said quietly. Yes, but he can't come near you. Legally, he can't. That won't stop him. Adrian knew she was right. The restraining order was protection on paper only. James Mitchell had proven he didn't care about consequences, didn't respect boundaries, didn't operate by normal rules. The real confrontation was still coming. They both felt it, hovering in the near future like a storm about to break. Adrian just hoped they were ready when it did. The days that followed felt like living with a gun pointed at their heads, waiting for it to go off. Elena moved her remaining belongings into Adrian's guest room, though she spent most nights falling asleep on his couch while they talked. Carter adjusted to having her around with the easy acceptance of children, asking one morning if Elena was his new mom, and then moving on to questions about breakfast before either adult could figure out how to answer. Adrian hired additional security, changed the building's access codes, and had cameras installed at every entrance. Elena went through the motions of normalcy, working on her freelance projects, cooking dinner, helping Carter with homework. But there was a brittleness to her now, like she might shatter if touched wrong. You're not sleeping, Adrian said one night, finding her at 3 a.m, staring out the living room window at the street below. Every car that slows down, every person who walks past, I think it's him. She didn't turn around. I keep waiting for him to appear, for the other shoe to drop. The restraining order is nothing. You know it, and I know it. She finally looked at him, and the exhaustion in her eyes hit him like a physical blow. I thought leaving would be enough. I thought putting distance between us, starting over, would make him move on. But he's never going to let me go, is he? Adrian crossed the room and wrapped his arms around her from behind. She leaned back against him, and he felt how tense she was. Every muscle coiled tight. We'll figure this out. I promise. You can't promise that. Nobody can. She was right, but he didn't know what else to say. So they stood there in the dark, watching the empty street, both of them waiting for a threat they couldn't predict or prevent. The court date for the restraining order hearing came 2 weeks later. Elena had been dreading it, barely eating for days beforehand. Adrian wanted to go with her, but her lawyer advised against it. James's attorney would use their relationship as ammunition, painting Elena as an unfaithful wife who'd abandoned her marriage for a wealthier man. It's all lies, Elena had said, pacing Adrian's study the night before. But it doesn't matter. James is good at making lies sound like truth. He'll cry in front of the judge, say I broke his heart, make himself the victim. Do you want me to testify about the assault in the lobby? No, your involvement just complicates things. She stopped pacing and looked at him. I need to do this myself, face him, tell my truth, and hope it's enough. So Adrian stayed home with Carter, trying to work, but mostly staring at his phone. Elena had promised to text him updates, but an hour into the hearing, there was still nothing. 2 hours. 3. Finally, at noon, his phone rang. It's done, Elena said, her voice flat and exhausted. The judge granted the permanent order. James has to stay at least 500 feet away from me at all times. That's good news, right? You didn't see his face when the ruling came down. He looked at me like... She trailed off. I've never seen that expression before. Like I'd killed something inside him, and he was already planning how to return the favor. What did his lawyer say? That they're appealing, that this isn't over. Elena's voice cracked. He cornered me in the hallway after Adrian. His lawyer was right there, and he just walked up to me and said, You think a piece of paper will stop me? You're still mine, Elena. You'll always be mine. Did you report it? To who? His lawyer saw the whole thing and claimed James was just saying goodbye. My lawyer filed a complaint, but nothing's going to happen. It's my word against theirs. Adrian felt that familiar rage building. Where are you now? Sitting in my car outside the courthouse. I'm afraid to drive home. What if he follows me? What if he's waiting somewhere? I'm sending a car for you. My driver will bring you home and security will follow to make sure you're not tailed. Don't argue with me on this, Elena, please. She didn't argue. 40 minutes later, she walked into the apartment looking wrung out, and Adrian pulled her into his arms without a word. She stood there stiffly for a moment, then collapsed against him, shaking. I thought facing him would make me feel stronger, like I'd taken back some control. Her words were muffled against his chest. But I just feel more trapped than ever. That night, after Carter was asleep, they sat together on the couch and Elena talked, really talked, in a way she hadn't before. She told him about the early days of her marriage, when James had been charming and attentive, how the control had started so slowly she hadn't recognized it, how he'd isolated her from friends and family, convinced her she was lucky to have him, made her doubt her own perception of reality until she couldn't trust her own thoughts. He made me feel crazy, she said. I'd remember things one way and he'd insist they'd happen differently, and he was so confident, so certain, that I'd start questioning my own memory. Eventually, I stopped trusting myself at all. If James said the sky was green, I'd start wondering if maybe I was colorblind. That's gaslighting. I know that now, but when you're in it, when it's happening every day in tiny increments, you don't see it. You just feel confused and inadequate and grateful that someone loves you despite how difficult you are. Adrian's jaw clenched. You're not difficult. You never were. James would disagree. She pulled her knees up to her chest. The worst part is that somewhere deep down, I still hear his voice. When I make a decision, there's this whisper asking if I'm sure, if I'm smart enough to know what's right, if I should ask someone else. It's like he installed a program in my brain that I can't fully delete. It'll get quieter with time. Will it? Because right now it feels like he's winning even when he's not here. Even with the restraining order. Even with you and all your security, he's still in my head, still controlling me. Adrian turned to face her fully. Then we fight back. We don't let him have that power anymore. How? How do you fight someone who lives in your own thoughts? By replacing him. Every time you hear his voice doubting you, you listen to mine instead. I think you're brilliant and strong and capable. I think every decision you've made since leaving him has been brave. I think you're one of the most remarkable people I've ever met, and the fact that you survived him with your soul intact is a goddamn miracle. Elena's eyes filled with tears. You don't really know me, Adrian. You're seeing the version I want you to see. Then show me the other versions. All of them. I'm not going anywhere. She kissed him then, desperate and searching, like she was trying to prove something to herself. Adrian responded carefully, letting her set the pace, feeling the tremor in her hands as they gripped his shirt. When they broke apart, Elena rested her forehead against his. I'm falling apart, she whispered. No, you're healing. It just looks like falling apart from the inside. They fell asleep on the couch, tangled together, and for the first time in weeks, Elena slept through the night without nightmares. The next morning brought a new problem. Carter's school called. There had been a man asking questions about Carter at pickup yesterday, claiming to be a family friend. The description matched James. Adrian felt ice in his veins. What did you tell him? Nothing, of course. We have strict protocols. But Mr. Wells, he was very persistent. He knew Carter's name, his teacher, his schedule. We're concerned he may have been watching the school. After hanging up, Adrian immediately called his lawyer, his head of security, and the police. Elena stood in the kitchen doorway, her face ashen. He went after Carter. He's using your son to get to me. We don't know that, don't we? What else would he be doing at a school where he has no connection? Her voice was rising, panic threading through. This is exactly what I was afraid of. He's going to hurt the people around me to punish me. Carter's safe. I'm pulling him from school for the rest of the week. We'll hire private tutors, keep him here where security can protect him. And then what? He stays locked up forever? This is no way for a child to live, Adrian. This is what James does. He poisons everything he touches. So what are you suggesting? Elena wrapped her arms around herself. Maybe I should leave. Really leave this time. Disappear somewhere he can't find me. And abandon everything you've built here? Your clients, your life, us? To keep you and Carter safe? Yes. No. Adrian crossed to her, gripping her shoulders. Running didn't work before and it won't work now. He found you once, he'll find you again. The only way through this is together. You keep saying that, but what if you're wrong? What if being together is exactly what makes us all targets? Before Adrian could answer, his phone rang. The police. James had violated the restraining order by going to Carter's school, and they'd arrested him an hour ago. He was being held pending a bail hearing. How long will he be in jail? Adrian asked. Hard to say. Could be released as early as tomorrow if he makes bail. Restraining order violations are usually just misdemeanors, unless there's an accompanying assault. After the call, Adrian relayed the information to Elena. She didn't look relieved. A day, maybe 2 if we're lucky. Then he's out again, and even angrier. Then we use the time to prepare, increase security, legal strategy, whatever we need. Elena laughed bitterly. You think you can protect everyone from everything with enough money and planning, but you can't. James doesn't play by rules or respond to logic. He's chaos wearing a human face, and he won't stop until someone gets hurt. Then we make sure that someone isn't you or Carter or anyone else we care about. How? How do you stop someone who has nothing left to lose? Adrian didn't have an answer for that. But he spent the afternoon making calls, setting up contingencies, creating layers of protection that felt simultaneously necessary and insufficient. Marcus stopped by that evening, took one look at the security monitors Adrian had installed, and whistled low. This is serious. Her ex is escalating. He went to Carter's school yesterday. Marcus's expression darkened. Man, I'm sorry. I was wrong about her. About all of it. Yeah, you were. So what's the plan? Keep everyone safe until James either gives up or gets locked up for long enough to matter. And if he doesn't do either? That was the question that kept Adrian up at night. What did you do with someone who refused to accept defeat, who saw restraining orders and arrests as minor inconveniences rather than consequences? How did you reason with irrationality or negotiate with obsession? Elena appeared in the doorway, and Marcus excused himself, leaving them alone. She looked fragile in a way that made Adrian's chest ache. I need to tell you something, she said quietly. And I need you to just listen, not try to fix it or argue with me. Okay. I'm scared all the time now, not just of James, but of this, us. I'm scared that I'm using you as a replacement for him, another person to depend on instead of learning to stand on my own. I'm scared that I'm putting your son in danger for selfish reasons, and I'm scared that when this is over, if it's ever over, you'll look at me and see all the damage and decide I'm not worth the trouble. Adrian waited, making sure she was finished before he spoke. Can I respond now? If you want. You're not using me. You're accepting help, which is different. As for Carter, he's my son and my responsibility, and I'm choosing to have you in our lives knowing the risks. That's on me, not you. He paused. And Elena, I've seen your damage. I've seen you scared and broken and barely holding it together. I'm still here. I'm going to stay here. You say that now? I'll say it next month too. And the month after that. However long it takes for you to believe me. She crossed to him, cupping his face in her hands. What if I'm never who you think I am? What if the person you're falling for is just who I am when I'm terrified, and the real me is disappointing? Then I'll fall for the real you too. All your versions, Elena. The scared one, the strong one, the broken one, the healing one. I'm not looking for perfect. I'm just looking for honest. She kissed him, and this time there was less desperation and more tenderness. When they pulled apart, she smiled slightly. You're too good at saying the right thing. It's suspicious. Years of boardroom negotiations. I know how to make my case. Is that what this is? A negotiation? No. This is me telling you the truth and hoping you believe it. The next 2 days existed in a strange bubble of enforced normalcy. James was still in jail, the bail hearing delayed due to a backlog in the court system. Carter stayed home with a tutor Adrian hired, seeming to enjoy the one-on-one attention. Elena worked on her freelance projects, and in the evenings they cooked together, played board games with Carter, pretended that the world outside the apartment didn't exist. On the 3rd night, Elena woke screaming from a nightmare. Adrian ran from his room to find her sitting up in bed, gasping for air, tears streaming down her face. Hey, you're okay. You're safe. He was here, in the dream. He had Carter and I couldn't reach them. I was running, but my legs wouldn't work, and he was laughing. She broke off, burying her face in her hands. Adrian sat on the edge of the bed, rubbing her back until her breathing slowed. It was just a dream. Carter's fine, he's asleep in his room, and James is in jail. For now, he'll get out. He always gets out. Then we'll deal with it when it happens. I can't keep living like this, Adrian, waiting for the next crisis, jumping at every sound. This isn't living, it's just surviving. So what do you need? Tell me and I'll make it happen. Elena looked up at him, her eyes red and swollen. I need this to be over, really over. I need to know that one day I'll wake up and not think about James at all, that he'll be so far in my past that he's irrelevant. But I don't know if that day is ever coming. It will. I promise you it will. Stop making promises you can't keep. I'm not. You're going to heal from this. You're going to build an amazing career and an amazing life, and you're going to be happy. With or without me, you're going to be okay. With or without you, she repeated. You really mean that? Yes. I want to be part of your life, but I don't need to be the center of it. You need to be the center of your own life. That's what healing looks like. She studied him for a long moment. How did you get so wise about this stuff? Therapy. Lots and lots of therapy after Carter's mom died. I had to learn that I couldn't control grief or death or the future. I could only control how I responded to it. Did it help? Eventually. The first year I was a mess, angry at everyone, trying to micromanage everything, because if I could just control enough variables, nothing else bad would happen. He smiled sadly. Obviously that didn't work, but I learned that letting go of control doesn't mean giving up. It just means accepting that some things are bigger than your ability to fix them. Is that what you're doing with me? Accepting you can't fix this? I'm accepting that you're the one who has to fix it. I'm just here to hand you tools when you need them. Elena leaned against him, exhausted. I'm glad you're here, even when I'm pushing you away or being difficult or falling apart. I'm glad you stayed. There's nowhere else I'd rather be. They sat together until Elena fell back asleep, and then Adrian carried her to his bed because she looked so small and vulnerable in the guest room, and he wanted her close. She didn't wake when he laid her down, just curled into his pillow with a soft sigh. Adrian watched her sleep for a while, this woman who'd crashed into his carefully ordered life and turned everything upside down. Marcus had been right to be concerned. This was messy and complicated and potentially dangerous. But he'd also been wrong, because Elena wasn't a risk to Adrian's life. She was the best thing that had happened to it in years. The bail hearing happened the next morning. James made bail again, posted by his brother, who apparently still believed his version of events. The judge increased the restrictions: ankle monitor, mandatory therapy, weekly check-ins with probation. But it didn't matter. James was free. Elena took the news with eerie calm, like she'd been expecting it. So now what? Now we wait and see if he violates again. He will. It's just a matter of when. She was right. 3 days later, Adrian's building security called in the middle of the night. Someone had tried to bypass the lobby security, claiming to have a package for Elena Carter. The cameras caught a clear shot of James's face before security ran him off. The police arrested him again. This time, the prosecutor argued for bail to be revoked entirely, pointing to the pattern of violations. The judge agreed, and James was remanded to custody pending trial. It could be months before the trial, Adrian's lawyer explained. Domestic violence cases are backlogged, but he's not getting out this time. For the first time in weeks, Elena breathed like the weight on her chest had lifted. Months. I have months to figure my life out before dealing with him again. And after the trial, if he's convicted, potentially years. That night they celebrated quietly. Takeout dinner, Carter's favorite movie, early bedtime. After the boy was asleep, Elena and Adrian sat on the balcony looking out at the Dallas skyline. I need to find my own place, Elena said suddenly. Adrian's stomach dropped. Why? Because I can't keep living in your guest room indefinitely. I need my own space, my own life. I need to prove to myself that I can stand on my own 2 feet. Is this because of James? Because he's locked up now? You don't need protection. It's not about protection. It's about me being a whole person instead of half of a couple, or someone's victim, or someone's charity case. She turned to look at him. I care about you. A lot. Maybe I'm even falling in love with you, but I can't build a relationship from a position of dependence. I need to know I'm choosing you because I want you, not because I need you. Adrian understood even though it hurt. Okay, but don't disappear on me. We still have dinner together, still talk, still whatever we are. We're figuring it out. That's what we are. She smiled. And I'm not going far. Maybe the building next door. Close enough to see each other, but far enough that I have my own space. Carter's going to have opinions about this. I know. That's why I wanted to talk to you first. She reached for his hand. I'm not leaving you, Adrian. I'm just learning to stand on my own while staying connected. Does that make sense? Yeah, it makes sense. I don't love it, but it makes sense. They sat in comfortable silence, hands linked, watching the city lights. After a while, Elena spoke again. Thank you. For everything. For taking me in when I was scared, for not making me feel weak for needing help, for caring about me even when I'm a mess. You're not a mess. You're a person dealing with an impossible situation as best you can. Same thing. Not even close. She leaned her head on his shoulder. I used to think love meant losing yourself in someone else. That's what James taught me. But with you, I'm learning it can be different, that I can love someone and still be myself, that being vulnerable doesn't mean being weak. You're teaching me things too. Like what? Like how to let go of control without losing myself. Like how to be present instead of always planning 3 steps ahead. Like how to let someone else's happiness matter as much as my own. Those are good lessons. Yeah, they are. Over the next week, Elena found an apartment, not in the next building, but 3 blocks away. Close enough for easy visits, but far enough to feel independent. Adrian helped her move what little she had and bought her a housewarming gift, a top-of-the-line laptop for her design work. This is too much, she protested. It's a business investment. You need good equipment to do good work. Adrian, take it or I'll be insulted. Your choice. She took it, but made him promise no more expensive gifts. I need to build my career on my own merit, not on your bankroll. Fair enough, but if you ever need help, I'll ask. I promise. And she did ask, but for small things. Advice on pricing her services, connections to potential clients that she approached on her own, feedback on her portfolio. Adrian watched her confidence grow as her freelance business took off, clients responding to her talent and work ethic. Carter struggled with Elena's move at first, asking every day when she was coming back, but they established a routine. Dinner together 3 nights a week, weekend outings, video calls on the nights they were apart. Slowly the boy adjusted, understanding that Elena wasn't gone, just living separately. The trial was set for 6 months out. In the meantime, life settled into something approaching normal. Elena went to therapy twice a week, working through the trauma and learning to recognize the patterns James had installed in her thinking. Adrian focused on being supportive without being controlling, checking in without hovering, offering help without assuming she needed it. They went on actual dates, restaurants, movies, walks through the city. Sometimes Carter came along and sometimes he stayed with Maria. They had fights about stupid things like whose turn it was to pick the movie or whether pineapple belonged on pizza. They learned each other's quirks and habits, the things that made them laugh, and the things that pushed their buttons. This feels normal, Elena said one night as they walked back to her apartment after dinner. Boringly, wonderfully normal. Is that good? It's amazing. For the first time in my adult life, I'm in a relationship where the drama is about whether to see an action movie or a comedy, not whether someone's going to explode at me for breathing wrong. Adrian pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. I vote comedy, for the record. Noted. At her door, Elena hesitated. They'd been taking things slow physically, both aware that rushing into intimacy might be Elena trying to replace one dependency with another. But tonight she looked up at him with clear eyes and said, Do you want to come in? Is that a good idea? Probably not. But I want you to anyway. Not because I'm scared or lonely or trying to prove something, just because I want you. They went inside, and for the first time since they'd met, they were just 2 people choosing each other without fear or obligation or ulterior motives coloring everything. It was messy and imperfect and human, exactly what they both needed. Afterward, lying tangled together in Elena's bed, she traced patterns on his chest. I love you, she said quietly. I didn't mean to yet, but I do. Adrian's heart did something complicated in his chest. I love you too. Have for a while now. Why didn't you say anything? Didn't want to pressure you. Didn't want you to feel like you owed me those words. I don't say things I don't mean. Not anymore. She looked up at him. I love you, Adrian Wells, even though you're controlling and overthink everything and have terrible taste in movies. Action movies are not terrible. They absolutely are. But she was laughing, and Adrian thought he'd never heard a better sound. They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, and for the first time in months, neither of them had nightmares. The peace lasted until 2 weeks before the trial, when Adrian got a call from James's lawyer requesting a meeting. Absolutely not, Elena said when he told her. It's a trap or a trick or both. Maybe, but what if there's a deal on the table? What if he's willing to plead guilty in exchange for a lighter sentence and leaving you alone? James doesn't make deals unless they benefit him. Whatever he wants, it's not going to be good. But Adrian went to the meeting anyway, bringing his own lawyer and a recording device. James's attorney was smooth and professional, laying out a proposal that made Adrian's skin crawl. My client is willing to plead guilty to all charges and accept 5 years in prison with the possibility of parole in 3. In exchange, he wants one conversation with Elena, supervised, recorded, whatever safeguard she needs, just 30 minutes to say goodbye properly. No, Adrian said immediately. Let me finish. If she refuses, my client will fight every charge. The trial could take months, require Elena to testify in detail about every aspect of their marriage, drag her through cross-examination that will be brutal and public. And even if he's convicted, the sentence likely won't be more than what we're offering now. So this is blackmail. This is a reasonable request from a man who wants closure. Adrian wanted to flip the table. I'll relay the offer, but the answer is going to be no. He was right. Elena's response was immediate and vehement. No, not a chance, not even for 5 minutes, let alone 30. I figured, but I had to tell you. He's trying to control me even from jail, trying to force me into giving him what he wants by threatening me with the trial. She was pacing her apartment, agitated. This is classic James. Make it seem like I have a choice when really both options benefit him. So we go to trial. Let him fight it. You'll have to testify, but we'll prepare you. Make sure you're ready. And if the jury doesn't believe me, if they buy his version where I'm the villain who abandoned a loving husband, then we appeal. We keep fighting. But Elena, you can't give him that conversation. He'll use it to manipulate you, to get inside your head again. I know I can't. But she looked scared in a way she hadn't in months. And Adrian hated James Mitchell all over again for reaching out from behind bars and stealing her peace. The trial date approached with dread hanging over both of them. Elena's lawyer prepped her for testimony, running through questions and worst-case scenarios until she could recite her answers in her sleep. Adrian wanted to be there, but Elena asked him to stay away from the courthouse. I need to do this myself. Face him without you there to protect me. Prove to myself that I'm strong enough. You're absolutely strong enough. Then let me prove it. So Adrian waited and worried and tried to keep Carter distracted while Elena spent 2 days on the witness stand being cross-examined by a lawyer whose job was to make her look like a liar. She came home each night exhausted and raw, collapsing into Adrian's arms without words. On the 3rd day, the jury deliberated for 6 hours before returning a guilty verdict on all counts. James Mitchell was sentenced to 7 years, no parole for at least 5. As they led him out of the courtroom, he looked directly at Elena and mouthed, "This isn't over." But it was over. At least this chapter of it. Elena cried that night, huge racking sobs that seemed to come from somewhere deep and previously untouchable. Adrian held her through it, saying nothing because there was nothing to say. She wasn't crying from fear or relief or sadness. She was crying because she was finally, truly free. The morning after the verdict, Elena woke up in her own apartment and didn't immediately check the locks. It took her a full 10 minutes to notice, and when she did, she sat on the edge of her bed and laughed until she cried. Such a small thing, forgetting to be afraid, but it felt monumental. She called Adrian. I forgot to check the locks. Is that good or bad? Good. I think. Maybe. I don't know. She was still laughing, slightly hysterical. I just woke up like a normal person who doesn't live in constant fear. It feels weird. Get used to it. That's your life now. But getting used to it turned out to be harder than either of them expected. Elena had spent so long in survival mode that she didn't know how to function without the adrenaline. She'd wake up at 3 in the morning, heart racing, convinced she'd heard something. She'd freeze at the grocery store, sure she'd seen James's face in the crowd, even though he was locked up 200 miles away. Her therapist said it was normal, that healing from trauma wasn't linear, that she should be patient with herself. Patience had never been Elena's strong suit. I thought I'd feel different, she told Adrian 2 weeks after the trial. They were having dinner at his place, Carter chattering away about a field trip, while Elena pushed food around her plate. I thought once he was convicted, once I knew he couldn't hurt me anymore, I'd just be okay. But I'm not. I'm still jumping at shadows. It's only been 2 weeks, I know. But I'm tired of being broken. I want to be done with this chapter and move on. You can't rush healing. Watch me try. She threw herself into work, taking on more clients than she could reasonably handle, working 16-hour days until Adrian staged an intervention. You're going to burn out. I'm fine. You're not fine. You're avoiding dealing with your feelings by burying yourself in work. Elena slammed her laptop shut. And you're avoiding your own issues by trying to manage mine. We all have our coping mechanisms, Adrian. It was their first real fight since the trial, and it was vicious. All the stress and fear and unprocessed trauma came pouring out in angry words they'd both regret later. Adrian accused her of self-sabotage. Elena accused him of trying to control her recovery the same way he controlled everything else. They said cruel things designed to hurt, poking at each other's sorest spots.
Maybe this was a mistake, Elena finally said, her voice cold. Maybe we only worked when I needed saving, and you needed someone to save. Is that really what you think? I don't know what I think anymore. I just know I can't breathe with you watching me all the time, waiting for me to break. I'm not waiting for you to break. I'm trying to support you. It feels the same from where I'm standing.
Adrian left and they didn't speak for 3 days. It was Carter who finally intervened, asking why Elena hadn't come to dinner and if she was mad at them. The simple question from a 7-year-old cut through all the adult complications and reminded Adrian what actually mattered. He showed up at Elena's apartment with takeout and an apology. You were right. I was trying to control your healing because watching you struggle makes me feel helpless. And I hate feeling helpless. But that's my problem, not yours. Elena let him in. I was right about some of it, wrong about the rest. I don't actually think we were a mistake. I was just scared and lashing out. Scared of what? Of being happy, of things being good, waiting for the other shoe to drop. She took the food from him and set it on the counter. Every time something good happens in my life, something bad follows. So now that James is locked up and I'm building a career and I have you and Carter, I keep waiting for it all to fall apart. What if it doesn't? Then I don't know how to handle that either. They sat on her couch, not eating, just talking through the fear and the fight and the underlying issues they'd both been avoiding. Adrian admitted he was terrified of losing her now that she didn't need him for safety. Elena admitted she was terrified of becoming dependent again, of losing the independence she'd fought so hard to reclaim. So what do we do? Adrian asked. We figure it out together. We communicate better. We fight fair. We remember that we're both kind of a mess and that's okay. She leaned against him. And we forgive each other for being imperfect humans doing our best. I can do that. Me too. They ordered new takeout since the first round had gone cold, and Carter came over with Maria, delighted to find his two favorite people together again. The boy didn't understand the complexities of adult relationships, but he understood when people he loved were happy versus sad, and he much preferred happy. Over the next few months, Elena and Adrian found their rhythm, not the crisis-driven intensity of those first months, but something steadier. They had weekly date nights, sometimes fancy restaurants, and sometimes just pizza on her couch. They argued about normal things like whose turn it was to pick the movie or whether cilantro tasted like soap. They learned to give each other space without it feeling like abandonment. Elena's business grew. She hired an assistant, rented a small office space, started turning down projects that didn't interest her because she could afford to be selective. Adrian watched her bloom into the person she'd been before James, or maybe someone entirely new, confident without arrogance, independent without isolation, strong but willing to be vulnerable when it mattered. 6 months after the trial, Elena got a call from a gallery in Houston wanting to feature her work. Not her commercial design work, but the personal art she'd been creating in therapy. abstract pieces that processed her trauma through color and shape. She almost said no, convinced no one would want to see her pain made visual. "Let them decide that," Adrian said when she called him, panicking. "You created something meaningful. Share it." The opening was terrifying. Elena stood in a gallery surrounded by strangers looking at the most intimate parts of her healing process. There was a piece called Fracture that showed a human form breaking apart, another called Voices, covered in scrawled words of self-doubt, one called Becoming, that showed fragmented pieces slowly reforming into something new. Adrian came with Carter, and Marcus brought a date, and to Elena's shock, people bought her work. Not because they pitied her or wanted to support her recovery, but because the art spoke to something universal. Everyone had been broken by something. Everyone knew what it felt like to rebuild. A woman in her 50s bought Becoming and told Elena it reminded her of her own journey after divorce. A young man bought Voices because he saw his own anxiety reflected in the chaotic text. By the end of the night, 7 pieces had sold, and the gallery owner wanted to discuss a longer-term partnership. "You're an artist," Adrian said on the drive home, Carter asleep in the back seat. "I'm a graphic designer who occasionally makes art." "No, you're an artist. Own it." Elena looked at him, this man who'd seen her at her absolute worst and somehow convinced her she could be more than her trauma. "Thank you." "For what?" "For pushing me, for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself, for staying when it got hard. You would have gotten here without me. Maybe, but it would have taken longer and hurt more." She reached for his hand. "I love you. Not because you saved me or fixed me, but because you stood beside me while I saved myself. That's all I ever wanted to do." The gallery show led to more opportunities. Elena started teaching art therapy workshops at a women's shelter, helping others process their trauma the way she'd processed hers. It was hard work, emotionally draining, but deeply fulfilling. She saw herself in these women, the fear, the shame, the slow rebuilding of identity. And she saw hope too, the possibility of life beyond survival. One afternoon at the shelter, a young woman asked Elena how she'd known when she was ready to date again after leaving her abuser. "I didn't," Elena admitted. "I met Adrian when I was absolutely not ready. I was a mess, still jumping at shadows, terrified of trusting anyone. But he was patient. He let me set the pace. He respected my boundaries even when it frustrated him. And slowly, I learned that not all men use love as a weapon." "How did you trust him?" "I didn't at first. I tested him constantly, pushed him away, waited for him to show his true colors. But his true colors were just kindness, consistency, actually respecting when I said no." Elena paused, thinking. "The thing about healthy love is it makes you more yourself, not less. With my ex, I became smaller every day. With Adrian, I grew." The woman nodded, taking notes like Elena's experience was a roadmap she could follow. Elena wished it was that simple, but she knew everyone's path was different. All she could do was share her story and hope it helped someone else feel less alone. Carter turned 8, and for his birthday he asked if Elena could officially be his family. Adrian and Elena had been dancing around the question of their future, both afraid to push too hard or move too fast. But an 8-year-old had no such reservations. "I mean, you're already here all the time," Carter said with the brutal honesty of children. "You help with homework and come to my games, and you live close. You're basically already my mom. Can we just make it official?" Elena looked at Adrian panicked. They'd been dating for over a year, living separately, but spending most nights together. They'd talked vaguely about the future, but never made concrete plans. "Buddy, that's a big question," Adrian started. "Not really. Do you love Elena? Does Elena love us? Then why aren't we a family?" Out of the mouths of babes, as the saying went. Adrian looked at Elena, who looked terrified but also hopeful. "Can we talk about this later?" Elena asked Carter. "Adult talk?" "Sure. But the answer should be yes." He went back to his video game like he hadn't just dropped a bomb on both of them. That night, after Carter was asleep, Adrian and Elena sat on his balcony with wine and honesty. "I want to marry you," Adrian said without preamble. "I've wanted to for months, but I was waiting for the right time, and apparently my son thinks the right time is now." "Adrian, let me finish. I'm not asking because Carter wants it, or because it's been long enough, or because it's what we're supposed to do. I'm asking because I can't imagine my life without you in it. Because you make everything better, harder sometimes, messier always, but better. Because I love you, and I want to wake up next to you every morning and fight about cilantro and watch you become whoever you're going to become. Elena was crying, but smiling too. That's a terrible proposal.
I know. I'll do it better later, with a ring and planning, and no, ask me now, like this. Adrian got down on one knee right there on the balcony, in sweatpants and a t-shirt, no ring, no plan, just raw honesty. Elena Carter, will you marry me? Will you let me be your person and let Carter be our kid and build this messy, imperfect, beautiful life together? Yes, absolutely, yes. Absolutely.
They kissed and cried and laughed at how unromantic it all was. Later, Adrian admitted he'd actually bought a ring 3 months ago and had been carrying it around waiting for a perfect moment. There's no such thing as a perfect moment, Elena said. There's just the moment you choose. Wise woman. I learned from a control freak who had to learn to let go. They got married 6 months later in a small ceremony with just close friends and family. Elena wore a simple dress, nothing like the elaborate wedding she'd had with James. Carter was the ring bearer and took his job very seriously. Marcus gave a toast that made everyone cry and laugh in equal measure. When Adrian first told me about Elena, I thought he was making a huge mistake, Marcus admitted. I thought she was going to break his heart or use him or bring drama he didn't need. And I was right about the drama. There was plenty of it. But I was wrong about everything else. Elena didn't break Adrian. She rebuilt him. She took this uptight, controlling, work-obsessed robot and turned him back into a human being who laughs and fights and loves. So here's to Elena for being exactly what he needed, even when it scared the hell out of both of them. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. Elena still had nightmares sometimes, still flinched at unexpected loud noises, still struggled with the voice in her head that sounded like James telling her she wasn't good enough. Adrian still tried to fix things he couldn't fix, still struggled with letting Elena handle her own problems, still worked too many hours when he was stressed. But they were working on it, together. Elena moved into Adrian's penthouse, turning the guest room into an art studio. Her business continued to grow, and she started getting commissions from major companies alongside her personal art projects. She never forgot where she'd come from, the woman who'd left a marriage with nothing but a suitcase and hope. She spoke at women's shelters, mentored abuse survivors, donated a portion of her profits to organizations helping domestic violence victims. Carter thrived with Elena in his life full-time. She attended every school event, helped with science projects, taught him to draw and see the world through an artist's eyes. He called her Elena, not Mom, and she was fine with that. She wasn't trying to replace anyone, just loved this kid who'd somehow become hers. 2 years after the wedding, Elena found out she was pregnant. The news sent her into a panic that lasted for days. She was terrified of repeating her mother's patterns, of passing trauma to another generation, of being a bad parent because she was still healing herself. I'm not ready, she told Adrian, pacing their bedroom at 2 a.m. No one's ever ready. You don't understand. What if I'm like him? What if I'm controlling or manipulative or… Stop. You're nothing like him. You're self-aware and thoughtful, and you've done the work to heal. That's the difference. What if the work isn't enough? Adrian pulled her down to sit beside him on the bed. Then we'll keep working. We'll go to therapy. We'll read parenting books. We'll make mistakes and apologize and try again, just like we've been doing with Carter, just like everyone does. Carter came with instructions. Well, sort of. He was already 6 when I met him. A baby is different. A baby is all potential and hope. And what if I mess it up? Then we'll mess it up together and our kid will go to therapy and complain about us and turn out fine anyway. Adrian took her hands. Elena, you're going to be an amazing mother. Not a perfect one. There's no such thing. But amazing. I know this because I've watched you with Carter, with the women at the shelter, with everyone you care about. You show up. You try. You love fiercely and honestly. That's all any kid needs. The baby was born healthy. A girl they named Maya because Elena liked that it meant illusion or dream, something intangible made real. Holding her daughter for the first time, Elena cried for everything she'd survived to get to this moment, for the woman who'd left with nothing and rebuilt herself into someone strong enough to create life, instead of just endure it. Maya was 6 months old when Elena got word that James was up for parole. The news hit her like a physical blow, sending her right back to that terrified woman who'd arrived in Dallas 3 years ago. "You won't get it," Adrian said, but they both knew that wasn't guaranteed. Elena hired a lawyer, wrote a victim impact statement, prepared to fight. But the night before the hearing, she sat in Maya's nursery and realized something had shifted. She wasn't afraid anymore. Or rather, she was afraid, but she wasn't paralyzed by it. James Mitchell had taken years of her life. He'd broken bones and spirits and stolen her sense of safety. But he hadn't destroyed her. She was still here, still standing, living a life so full and beautiful that it sometimes took her breath away. She had a husband who loved her as an equal, 2 children who thought she hung the moon, a career she'd built from nothing, and most importantly, she had herself back. Whatever happened at the parole hearing, James couldn't take any of that away. Not anymore. The parole board denied his request. They cited his lack of remorse, his continued insistence that Elena was at fault, his refusal to participate meaningfully in therapy. He'd served the full 7 years, possibly more if he didn't get his act together. Elena felt relief, but not the overwhelming flood she'd expected. Instead, she felt something quieter. Resolution, maybe, or simple acceptance that he would always be part of her history, but he didn't have to define her future. "How are you doing?" Adrian asked after she got the news. "I'm okay. Actually, okay. Not just saying it." "Really? Really? He doesn't have power over me anymore. He's just a sad man in a cage who refuses to grow or change or take responsibility. And I'm..." She looked around their home, at Carter doing homework at the kitchen table, and Maya sleeping in her bassinet. "I'm free. Finally, completely free." That freedom took different shapes as the years passed. Elena's art was featured in galleries across the country. Her commercial design firm became one of the most sought after in Dallas. She wrote a book about her experience that helped thousands of other survivors see a path forward. But the real victory wasn't professional success or financial stability. It was the small moments, waking up without fear, making decisions without second-guessing herself into paralysis, arguing with Adrian about whose turn it was to do dishes and knowing it was just an argument, not a precursor to violence, watching her children grow up in a home where love looked like respect and partnership, not control and terror. Carter graduated high school and went to college to study environmental science. Maya showed early signs of artistic talent that Elena encouraged without pushing. Adrian finally learned to delegate at work, spending less time in the office and more time with his family. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Adrian took Elena back to the lake where they'd had their first real conversation. It looked different now. They'd built a small house there, a weekend retreat from the city. The kids were with Marcus and his wife for the weekend, giving them rare time alone. "Remember when you thought I was trying to pick you up?" Adrian asked as they sat by the water. "You were trying to pick me up." "Was not. I was being neighborly." "Uh-huh, sure." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sunset paint the water gold and pink. After a while, Elena spoke. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we hadn't met? If your friend hadn't pushed you to talk to me that day?" "All the time. You?" "Sometimes. I think I would have survived, found a job, built a life, healed eventually. But it would have been lonelier, harder." She leaned against him. "I'm glad I didn't have to do it alone." "Me too, though I'm glad you could have if you needed to. That's what makes this work, knowing we choose each other, not need each other." "When did you get so wise?" "I married a good teacher." Elena laughed. "I was a disaster when we met." "You were surviving. There's a difference." "And now?" "Now you're thriving. We both are." It was true. Against all odds, despite every reason it shouldn't have worked, they'd built something real, not perfect. There were still hard days, still moments when old trauma resurfaced or old habits reared their heads. But they'd learned to navigate those moments together, to extend grace to each other and themselves. The story of Adrian and Elena wasn't about a billionaire saving a damsel in distress. It was about 2 broken people who chose to heal together instead of apart. It was about learning that love doesn't fix you, but it can hold you steady while you fix yourself. It was about the courage it takes to trust again after betrayal, to be vulnerable after violation, to believe in good things after surviving bad ones. As the sun set over the lake, Elena thought about the woman she'd been 3 years ago, terrified, alone, convinced she'd never be safe or whole again. She wished she could tell that woman everything would be okay, that the fear would fade. That one day she'd sit by a lake with a man who loved her, and children who needed her, and a life she'd built with her own two hands, and feel nothing but gratitude for the journey that brought her there. But that woman wouldn't have believed it. Healing doesn't come from promises or reassurance. It comes from walking through the fire and discovering you don't burn, you just get stronger. Thank you, Elena said quietly. For what? For seeing me when I couldn't see myself, for staying when it got hard, for loving me through all of it. Adrian kissed her temple. Thank you for letting me, for trusting me with your broken pieces, for putting them back together and letting me watch. We're quite the pair, aren't we? Yeah, we really are. They stayed by the lake until the stars came out, talking and dreaming and planning a future that felt possible now in ways it never had before. Not because all their problems were solved or all their wounds were healed, but because they'd learned that perfection wasn't the goal. Connection was. Growth was. Choosing each other every day through the mess and beauty of being imperfectly, wonderfully human. That was enough. More than enough. It was everything.